Hello! If you're watching this, you probably know how these iceberg videos work, but if you don't, here. An iceberg image is one of these, a popular meme format that can list pieces of information and inside jokes surrounding a single piece of media, interest, or community in a growing amount of obscurity. A reference to the tip of the iceberg phrase implying something deeper and darker beneath the surface. An iceberg video takes one of these images and explains every entry on the list in detail with visual aids. There, just remember what I said in slow motion. A few other people have made videos covering Half-Life Icebergs, but rather than this or this, I'll be going over this image, the deepest I could find, made by Lackluster Beige on Reddit. And because that's still not enough, I added a few entries from this other one made by the same person a few months earlier, and even more that I came up with just for fun. I got the information in this video from a combination of the Combine Overwiki, the Half-Life 2 beta website, and my own brain after talking about these games for years. There's a lot to cover here, so grab a snack and feel free to skip around using the timestamps in the description. Oh, and obviously, spoilers for every Half-Life and Portal game. So without further ado, let's begin. This first section is mostly made up of widely known information, with a few sprinkles of the obscure. You can get a lot of this from just playing the games and watching a few videos on the development, but trust me, there's a few nuggets in here that you're probably still not aware of.
That's the old passage to Ravenholm. We don't go there anymore.
Ravenholm was a mining town repurposed into a resistance hideout before the events of Half-Life 2. If you've played the game, and if you're watching this, you probably have, you know what happened to it. It's a place deserving of its own video someday. Ivan the Space Biker is the name given by Valve employees to this unused model for Half-Life's player. It was made early in development, the goal being to create a protagonist that didn't look like the standard muscle-bound hero type, but as you can see, that's pretty much what they made. He gets his name from, well, come on, just look at him. You can see the model in some early screenshots, but the design was later reworked into the Gordon Freeman we know today. The Big Pink Cookie is a cookie from the actual Valve cafeteria that Eric Wolpaw, writer of Portal 2 and Half-Life Alyx, was very fond of, as he explained in an interview that became a minor meme.
And my current favorite snack is this Big Pink Cookie. But it's kind of a commitment to eating snacks because it's about 7,000 calories per cookie. So what I do is I'll take it and then I'll bring it back to my desk and eat like a little bit at a time. It takes me about a week to eat one.
We got the recipe for it, and for a vegan variant last year, so if you're such a Valve nerd that you want to eat what the Half-Life devs eat, now you can. Epistle 3 is a thinly veiled outline of potential story beats for Half-Life 2 Episode 3, released by series writer Mark Laidlaw over a year after he left Valve. He stated that this was never actually going to be the story, as the details in a lot of Valve's games are in flux right up until release, just some of the concepts from a version. Reading it was actually pretty sad back in 2017 when we didn't know we'd get another game, and a lot of it feels like a meta-commentary on Laidlaw's exit from the company. Breen Grub was another piece of writing penned by Laidlaw, this time taking the form of a Twitter account he made when he was still working at Valve. It's a series of transmissions sent from Dr. Breen after his consciousness was uploaded into an advisor body, which is also a part of Epistle 3. Laszlo was
the finest mind of his generation to come to such an end.
You've seen him if you've played Half-Life 2. Fun fact, this other guy here is named Sandy. AR-3s don't exist. This guy in Episode 2?
AR-2? No. Now, an AR-3, sure. Plenty of times.
There is no such thing as an AR-3.
Yeah, he's making shit up. What a prick.
How did you city folk kill hunters?
We sure as hell didn't use guns. We would just wrestle hunters to the ground with our bare hands.
The Consoling Couple. A sad couple appears across all games in the Half-Life 2 arc, first as civilians, then as Resistance members. They use the same models every time, so it's probably the same people, but you find these skeletons on a couch in Episode 2 and then see them alive at a later point. Multiple couples? Time travel? Cloning technology? An Easter egg? Probably that last one, yeah. These citizens being brutalized in this earlier scene in Half-Life 2 used the same pair of models as the couple, so they might be the same people. Perhaps this is why they decided to join the rebellion. The all-knowing Vortigaunt lives in a hidden cave near the end of Water Hazard. They speak in riddles that give hints to the greater lore of the series.
What seems to you a sacrifice is merely to us an oscillation. We do not fear the interval of darkness.
We'll be coming back to these for a few of the later entries. Distorted Trumpets is this stock sound effect. Half-Life 2's composer and sound designer Kelly Bailey mixed this in with another stock sound effect called Is That the Door? The result was the haunting melody played through this random TV with the G-Man on it for a few seconds in Anti-Citizen 1. It's almost comical how hard this is trying to be creepy when the game did it so well earlier in Ravenholm and soon will in the Citadel. The individual sounds have been available to buy since 1995, both by an artist named Zero G from a sample pack called Cuckoo Land Ghost in the Machine. Fun fact, a lot of these are used in the Silent Hill series too. The Wasteland is what part of Earth has become during the Combine's rule, and pretty much refers to everything outside of City 17. It's a bit of a misnomer because the name is associated with the development, and we'll elaborate on that further in a bit. Nova Prospect prisoners are prisoners held in Nova Prospect. We don't see many of them, and the actual old world prison cells seem to have been replaced with the Combine's own solution, which is likely an even worse existence. As Alex just swipes past a bunch of people on her way to find Eli in the system, you can't help but wonder if they'll be killed, sent somewhere else, or turned into hideous monsters like the ones we see in the Citadel. Codename Gordon was a fan game made by two friends under the name Nuclear Vision Entertainment. Valve liked the project and published it on Steam. Gabe wanted to do a fake announcement for Half-Life 2, saying that they had to cut the third dimension to get the game out early. Knowing Valve fans, it's probably good that he didn't do that. Once Nuclear Vision Entertainment ceased to exist, their website was replaced by some adware site, and because the game itself links you to that URL, Valve had to delist it from Steam. You can still access it if you have the app ID though. The suppression field is a nebulous thing that the Combine uses to mess with
certain protein chains important to the process of embryonic development,
basically meaning that no more humans can be born. The real reason for this, of course, was to avoid having children appear anywhere in the game. Suppression field is also the name of a song that appears when Gordon sees the playground for the second time, giving off a dreadful vibe with the implications that he's learned. The kids aren't just gone. If Gordon doesn't succeed, there'll never be any more. The song replaces playground memory from the first time we come through this place, which is just so creepy. Ugh. The vault becomes the major goal of Half-Life Alyx partway through the game. Eli thinks Gordon must be in it, and he's not. We don't actually know a ton about it. Weird things happen inside, but that's really about it. I like how it serves as a big imposing landmark that doesn't eclipse the Citadel from Half-Life 2, and I'm willing to bet the next game will use the Borealis in the same way. The Black Mesa incident is the Resonance Cascade. You know, this bit.
Lydia! Gordon! Get away from the shutting down! No! Attempted shutdown! It's not shutting down. It's not.
The term can also refer to everything else that occurs at Black Mesa in the following days. It's the single event that leads to the rest of the series, bringing the aliens to Earth and eventually the Combine. For more information, play Half-Life. It's a pretty good game. Race X is a term for the new, unique creatures created by Gearbox for Opposing Force. Rather than being generally unique with a few recognizable traits like the existing aliens from Half-Life, most of Race X are just big insects. Gearbox made them to, quote, create the gameplay they knew how to make, which is more projectile-based and bullet-spongy like the classic shooters the Gearbox team had worked on. Mark Laidlaw says they never factored into his interpretation of the world, and we'll probably never see them again. Black Ops ninjas are these bastards from the first game. They're in Opposing Force too, and even more annoying. Not actually ninjas, but I appreciate the reference.
It's Occam's Shuriken! When the answer is elusive, never rule out ninjas!
Their breasts jiggle in their animations, a feature they actually had to remove for the German release. The 7-hour war was Earth's conflict with the Combine shortly after the Black Mesa incident, and given its length and the state of the place in Half-Life 2, you can guess the outcome. We don't know what happened during, but old newspapers found in Alyx give a bit of a glimpse, and reveal that Dr. Breen himself was the one who negotiated surrender, speaking for an entire planet that didn't ask. For more information on the Combine's rule, I'll refer you to the Civil Protection episode, Oil's Well.
I'll give you that. Killing off 5 billion people did wonders for solving most of our social problems.
It sure did. Now there are no politics. You either do what the government says or you die.
The cat. What cat?
When I couldn't find you, I got... I know. I shouldn't have worried. Well, we should keep moving. I'm sure the Combine haven't forgotten about us.
Alyx voice recasting refers to how Merle Dandridge, voice actor for Alyx Vance in Half-Life 2 and the episodes, didn't return for the prequel bearing her character's name. Alyx is portrayed instead by Ozioma Akaga.
I must show you something.
Look, I appreciate
this way.
I can't stick around.
It is important.
I know, I'm sure it is.
The Alyx Vance must go this way, anyway.
Okay.
Fans were understandably confused by the change, which Valve staff said was for the sake of a younger voice, but the results were so good that I personally didn't notice.
Whoa, wait, I just live here.
Probably anti-citizen. Get those hands off!
Wait, don't shoot!
There have been leaks of early versions of the game with Merle's voice, though.
Just stop. There was supposed to be a weapon. Where is it? Is it in the briefcase? Are you the weapon?
And some speculate that office politics might have been the real reason for the change, but we really don't know. Gordon's ponytail is a glorious collection of 9 polygons, yes, I counted, present on Gordon Freeman's model in the first Half-Life. Fans have long campaigned for its prophesized return, while an anonymous coward from the Alex development team spoke ill of it in a Reddit AMA. Truly heartbreaking news that shattered all of the goodwill built by this new game in a single instant. Breen is humanity's savior. This seems to refer to a popular theory, which states that Dr. Breen was on the Resistance side the entire time. Acting as a figurehead, he gave the people a single individual to hate, instead of the faceless collective of the Combine, and the fall of that figure would give humanity the hope it needed to push back. It would explain how cartoonishly evil he comes off at times.
It is futile to cry for mother's milk when our true sustenance awaits us among the stars. And only the universal union that small minds call the Combine can carry us there. Therefore I say yes, I am a collaborator. We must all collaborate, willingly, eagerly, if we expect to reap the benefits of unification. And reap we shall.
Or maybe this just refers to how he was the one who negotiated surrender, still killing billions, but at least it wasn't everyone. His last words in Half-Life 2 have left a lot of room for speculation.
Yeah!
You need me.
Did it!
The Hydra was an amazing enemy cut late into Half-Life 2's development, a collection of otherworldly tentacles that would have acted in ways nothing ever had in a video game before. It was supposed to have many heads with different designs, all performing different tasks, though only one was ever seen in action. The thing was pretty much entirely built by Ken Birdwell, responsible for the first game's complex animation system, who wanted it in the sequel from the very beginning. It was cut in the end, with Valve citing poor gameplay when the player fought it. Ken Birdwell left Valve in 2016, likely right before Alex's development became anything serious, so he may never get to see the monster again outside of these scripted moments from the E3 trailer. G-Man's briefcase is that thing he has, this one right here. In the first 2 games, it's literally fused to his flesh. In the Day 1 demo, he clutches it to his chest as he runs away when shot, a feature cut from the game for obvious reasons. You can see the inside of the briefcase using NoClip, or by viewing the textures separately. He has a gun, a badge, and a few pencils. In opposing force, he has a cell phone at one point too.
But I am sorry to say that I don't think I can allow you to join our group. From what I'm looking at, your wiener is massive. I mean, the sheer girth and juiciness alone is ridiculous.
Well, shit.
Drained oceans were a concept from Half-Life 2's development, in a period where the oceans would have been removed by the Combine entirely, resulting in the aforementioned wasteland. Some unfinished levels of the seafloor were released in the 2003 leak, and these are among the worst in the entire beta, hence why they didn't make it. They evolved into the coast levels for the final game, which feel open without wasting your time with vast stretches of nothingness. Valve revisited the wasteland concept for Episode 2, but eventually landed on the forest setting we see in that game. Bee hopping, or bunny hopping, refers to a glitch appearing in a number of games using engines derived from Quake. Essentially, air strafing and jumping repeatedly will allow the player to increase their speed, greatly helping in speedruns and maintaining a market garden in Team Fortress 2. It works differently in the first 2 Half-Life games in the Portal series, and most of its exploitative uses have been patched. You can find plenty of tutorials online. 36 after 7. This is the haunting tune played in Russell's apartment in Half-Life Alyx. It's up to interpretation what the melody is supposed to indicate, though the name may be referencing the 7-Hour War. You can hear it without the filter in the game's official soundtrack. Apple made the HEV as a joke referring to this image showing Gordon wearing a white HEV suit with the Apple logo, part of a campaign to advertise the various Valve games getting ported to Mac OS at the time. Our second level is a bit more niche. This is the tip of the iceberg. Hidden and well-known cut content, as well as bits of lore and a few theories reside here. G-Man is Gordon Freeman from the future, refers to an old, bad theory that's been around forever. Gordon has a blue jacket in his locker, a few vague physical similarities, and the name G-Man is made up of the beginning and end of Gordon Freeman. Beyond these vague coincidences, there's nothing else to really point to this, and it's kind of disappointing and lazy in my opinion. The theory was referenced by Eric Wolpaw, writer for Portal 2 and Half-Life Alyx, in an interview.
But he's definitely a presence that's sort of felt throughout Aperture.
And he's a human?
Well, he was at one time. Yeah. I mean, it's significantly farther in the future, though. So, you know, he's probably just dust at this point.
You never know.
You know, you
Maybe
don't
he's
know.
the G-Man.
He might be. That's actually not a bad idea.
Never know.
Instead of Gordon from the future, which is what he is now. So, by the way.
Really?
No.
Keep it quiet, right?
Yeah, he's not.
Sent the fans into
He's
a
not.
rage. Gordon from the future.
Yeah.
Time-traveling Gordon?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's totally what he is.
It's amazing. You spoiled it all for the fans, right?
Gordon from the future.
The cremator head refers to this object here in Eli's lab. In the finished game, it's just another cool science thing that he has in here, but this is actually all that remains of the cremator, one of the many enemies that didn't make it to the final cut. It would have been a janitor of sorts, cleaning up any aliens that may have made it into the city using a weapon called the Immolator. The heads were to be picked up and thrown with the brickbat, a cut weapon that was just Gordon's hands. With some of the creature's humanoid features visible, it's hard to tell where the living flesh ends and the mechanical parts begin. It would have served as scenery or an enemy depending on where the player was in the game, and plenty of disturbing sound files can be found in the leak. Gauss jumping, or Gauss boosting, is another movement technique, using the Gauss gun or Tau cannon's recoil to gain speed or leap into the air. It's especially easy to pull off in multiplayer, where the recoil has been dialed up to 11. The Panther Eye was a cut enemy from the first Half-Life, and one of the more mysterious omissions. What little AI it has is unimpressive, and its only major appearances in the leaked alpha have it mauling a scientist in a scripted scene, and just sitting there in the portal device. It probably would have acted a lot like the big cat that gives it its name, and earlier versions under the name Sound Dog indicate that it may have had something to do with sound, I guess. The Half-Life 2 beta leaks, or at least the first and most famous, occurred on October 7th of 2003. The game was slated for a vague holiday release date that year at the time, after missing the previously scheduled late September, so people thought the game was in its final stages. Axel Gembe was a German teenage fan of the first game, and decided to try to get some new information on the sequel. He was a small-time hacker who had never tried anything on such a large scale, but found it rather easy to get in and download everything he could. The hack itself took place on the 2nd, and one of Axel's friends leaked a working version of the game on the 7th. The build was about as fun as it was complete, with dev text filling the hallways and entire sections of grey walls intended to be filled in later. Gembe was arrested in early 2004 by German authorities. His punishment was fairly lenient because of his age, the circumstances, cooperation, and lack of involvement in the game's release online, and he's expressed regret since. The entire episode probably deserves a documentary or something with all the moving parts and consequences, but at least it didn't hurt the game's sales when it finally released in late 2004. Poly-Robo Dance refers to a fairly high poly-character dancing, seen in some Half-Life 1 previews. It was meant to showcase the engine's capabilities in displaying complex models while simultaneously animating them. The robot is based on the regular battle pod from the anime Super Dimension Fortress Macross. Its dance is a reference to the dancing baby meme, the Ooga Chaka one. Screams and on a rail. 4 of these unsettling sounds exist in Half-Life, listed in the files as the Horror 1 through 4. As far as I'm aware, they only play in On a Rail, and while many theories have emerged, they're never explained. More than likely just weird ambient noise.
What's that noise? What? Alright, I'm not an expert in the field, but that sounds to me like the cries of the damned. I'm not where I should be.
Nihilanth's head. Nihilanth takes the appearance of a distorted human fetus, with a head that opens up to reveal a portal. His name, Nihilanth, comes from a combination of nihilism and the anth suffix related to flowers, referencing his blossoming scalp. Baby heads are soft and distressingly malleable, which I think is most likely where this design choice came from. Headcrabs changing biology. For some reason, headcrabs in Half-Life 1 will die in radiation and survive underwater, but headcrabs in Half-Life 2 can survive in radioactive waste and drown in water. All of these situations appear naturally in gameplay, so they're probably not oversights. The best lore theory I can think of to explain this is that both changes were made by the Combine for their weaponized headcrabs, to keep them contained in a single area, but more resilient overall. HL2 Zombie backward screams. When you play some Half-Life 2 zombie sound effects in reverse, you can hear what remains of their humanity emerge. It isn't known who recorded these. Mark Laidlaw has jokingly taken credit, but it probably wasn't him. The sounds everyone talks about are these ones that only play when the zombie is on fire. Their normal noises are mostly stock animal sounds. The buggy is on the moon. One of the modes in the Knuckles controller Portal Moondust demo allows you to drive some RC cars on the moon and race them with a friend. One of them is Black Mesa themed and it resembles the HL2 buggy. This one is super obscure as this demo isn't even available anymore.
Valve News Network is the former name of Tyler McVicker's YouTube channel. Tyler is an independent games journalist and entertainer who talks about news pertaining to Valve, Bethesda, and other companies. He made a video about a Half-Life VR game 3 years before it was announced, yet remains a controversial figure.
Mr. Friendly is another cut Half-Life enemy, famous for its disturbing sexual overtones. Skip to this timestamp if you want to avoid that. The design that nearly made it into the game was a non-hostile scavenger that would explain where the corpses go, an in-universe justification for saving on processing power. He would only fight back if provoked, swinging around these tentacles and knocking Gordon's glasses off, giving the player blurred vision. Its initial designs, though, had it, use its tentacles to perform fatal copulation. These are the kinds of things you get from Ted Backman, who designed pretty much all of the weird fleshy things in these games. We'll see a lot more of him on this iceberg. Apparently Gabe loved the idea, and it would have served as a way to exploit the latent homophobia of teenage boys who would inevitably make up much of the game's audience. Although a model exists in the final game's files, it never makes a proper appearance and has no working AI, probably for the best. Child labor was a decidedly more 2000s approach to weird, out-of-place edginess that was considered for the sequel. The aforementioned cremator heads were going to be built in factories by child laborers. You can see them working in some leaked City 17 levels, and there's this weird map by Mark Laidlaw that gives off just the worst vibes possible. As stated earlier, children were cut, explained by the suppression field in the final game. Return to Ravenholm was a Half-Life spin-off developed by Arcane Studios from 2006 to 2007. It was going to feature Adrian Shepard as the playable character, introducing a ton of unique mechanics and enemies and plot elements never seen in a Half-Life game. For more information, check out Tyler's video on the game, and NoClip's documentary about Arcane as a whole. Parts of the Half-Life community launched a bit of a campaign in hopes of getting it released, and despite not harassing random people involved for years on end, nothing has come of it so far. E3 Psych refers to this segment shown at E3 in 2003, sending off Valve's demonstration of Half-Life 2. It's a weird little rush through a bunch of low-resolution textures, pieces of the game, this math equation, and what appears to be a snippet of some report on Gordon, possibly by the G-Man to his enigmatic employers. It ends with this.
Well, well, isn't this just like old times?
And if I were in the audience back then, I would have screamed. Zen factories are the primary setting of Interloper, showing how alien grunts are manufactured and providing a small glimpse into the true nature of the Vortigaunts. If I had to guess though, this entry is probably referring to Interloper's cut maps leaked alongside the Half-Life 2 stuff in 2003, owing to their inclusion in files pertaining to the source port of the game. Marfitimus Blackamus made a video on them, and he converted them to the original Gold Source version so we can download and play them. Most of the content is just early versions of what made it into the game. It's all a bit more industrial, and you can see scientists stored in tubes the same way Black Mesa collected beings from Zen. Stolen Aperture Tech refers to an accusation made by Cave Johnson claiming Black Mesa stole technology made by Aperture Science. While both were researching forms of teleportation technology and both competed for government funding, there isn't much evidence that Black Mesa directly stole from Aperture, and in fact, the opposite may be true instead. The Borealis is one of, if not the most mysterious element in the Half-Life series. Named the Hyperborea in the first builds of the game, it was to be a large part of Half-Life 2 throughout its development, an entire chapter with a number of unique characters and elements before being cut entirely from the game, then revived as the center of the cliffhanger in Episode 2. In current continuity, it was an Aperture Science vessel that disappeared from its dry dock and ended up in the Arctic, now sought after by the Combine due to some unnamed technology on board. Given what we know, this is probably some kind of portal technology, and Epistle 3 confirms that this was Valve's idea at some point too. This is another thing that deserves its own video. Manhack Arcades were another cut location in Half-Life 2. The player would have come across this place to meet Barney early on in the game, where they would have discovered that manhacks are piloted by civilians under the guise of a fun video game. Players were given the option to play it for themselves, but the builds we have available are hard to control and not much fun. The arcades were cut because they weren't fun to play, and because the journey to Kleiner's lab was far too long, cut down in the final game to only a few maps of world building and action. The Gaben Dev Texture Room is a room hidden away in map C1A1C in Half-Life 1, used to house a Hound Eye before it teleports in, a technique the game uses frequently. As far as I can tell, these were never actually used as dev textures, and this is just a fun Easter egg. It's all Gabe all the time. Cremators were cut twice. In addition to their removal from Half-Life 2, the cremators were kind of cut from Alyx as well. Seeing as Zen infestation was such a major part of the game, it's only natural that the janitors were considered too, but only one piece of concept art exists for this version, with a wonderful purple coat and a more robotic appearance overall. Instead, Alyx introduces a new line of workers in hazmat suits, who clearly weren't that effective in stopping the contamination. From Here to There in Under a Second is a book by Dr. Kleiner about teleportation. First appearing on a shelf in Eli's lab, a more detailed copy appears in Alyx, where you can read the back. It reveals that the book was written while Kleiner worked at MIT, which is where he met Gordon, and the magazine Popular Scientist liked it. I'm sure whatever's written in there would go right over my head. You know Eli's sweater, with the Harvard logo? Well, in episode 2, Eli wears a different sweater that gives him more of an aging grandpa vibe. This Harvardless sweater is appropriately the one used in Half-Life Alyx's ending to match up with continuity. However, the version of Alyx released on day 1 had the Harvard sweater, which was very, very incorrect, and people were sure to point it out immediately. I mean, that's just absurd. What a fucking blunder. This is made even more confusing by the fact that Eli is wearing the correct sweater in an early beta version of the ending, so how'd they screw it up right before release? The Vortessence is a vague energy, concept, or belief system known to the Vortigaunts. It's a lot like the Force from Star Wars. The all-knowing Vortigaunt gives a bit of a description.
We are a tapestry woven of vortessence. It is the same for you if only you would see it.
But not a lot. Apparently Gordon retrieved Alyx's Vortessence, it runs strong in Dr. Magnuson, and the Combine have some way to sever a Vortigaunt's connection to it, or possibly even harvest it for power. Maybe it's what connects all Vortigaunts together through time and space, and maybe it's what allows them to interact with the G-Man? Who knows? The Air Exchange was yet another cut location from Half-Life 2, the culmination of a long stretch of the game after the depot and the wastelands. AirX was a place that pumped air breathable by advisors into the atmosphere, in turn making it poisonous to humans, necessitating the gas mask seen on citizens in earlier stages of the game. Quite a few Air Exchange maps were created, using these terrible air machine things that launch players through the air, and you were going to meet up with Captain Vance here. Elements of Air Exchange were used for the Noble Prospect part of the game, and the whole replacement of the atmosphere concept was removed when the gas mask citizens were, in order to better display Valve's facial animation systems. Roach AI in Half-Life is shockingly complex. They react to light, chunks of meat, all kinds of weird little things for the sake of making the game more believable. Check out Marphy's video on it. Alyx Rat. This is the single best part of Half-Life Alyx, and I think everyone deserves to experience it in virtual reality. Now imagine this actually happening in front of your eyeballs in full 3D with no sound or light from the outside world leaking in. It's magical. And with that, we've reached the end of the first part of the ultimate Half-Life Iceberg. Thank you all very much for bearing with me on this one. I just knew that I had to get the first part out on Half-Life's 25th birthday. Hopefully the next parts won't take quite as long as this did. I started writing this like 2 years ago or something now, it's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, this covered around 20 pages of a 100-page long script, so we're around a fifth of the way through. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe so you're here for the next few parts. That'll be all from me. Goodbye.